The emergency klaxons shrieked through the crystalline corridors of Medical Station Kepler 442b, their haunting wail echoing off surfaces that had seen countless alien emergencies. Nurse Sixth of the Kethmori race adjusted her bioluminescent uniform and checked her 6 optical sensors as she glided toward Emergency Bay 7 on her undulating tentacle base. Her species had evolved on the ocean floors of Kethmor Prime, making them naturally suited for the flowing, graceful movements required in zero-gravity medical facilities. Another mining accident? She queried through her neural implant to the station's AI, her mental voice carrying the melodic undertones characteristic of her people. Negative, Nurse 6, unknown vessel classification. Primitive propulsion system detected. Species unidentified. The AI responded in its sterile, efficient manner. Zixtha's bioluminescent patches flickered with curiosity. In her 47 standard years of service at the most advanced medical facility in the Andromeda Trade Union, she had treated representatives from over 3,000 known species. The station served as a neutral ground where even warring civilizations could seek medical aid, protected by ancient treaties that predated most current governments. As she entered Emergency Bay 7, her 6 eyes immediately focused on the viewing port. Outside, a vessel unlike anything in her extensive experience tumbled slowly through space. It was crude, angular, and appeared to be held together by what looked like metal welding, a primitive technique abandoned by most civilizations eons ago. Scorched marks covered its hull, and atmosphere vented from multiple breaches. By the deep currents, she whispered, using an oath from her homeworld. What kind of species builds ships from such primitive materials? Dr. Vexan, the station's chief medical officer, and a member of the highly advanced Zephyrian race, materialized beside her in his characteristic shimmer of controlled energy. His people had transcended physical form millennia ago, existing as pure consciousness that could manipulate matter at will. The preliminary scans are fascinating, Nurse Sixth, he said, his voice resonating directly in her mind. The vessel contains a single life form. The species appears to be carbon-based, bipedal, and remarkably similar to the theoretical evolutionary path we've seen on countless worlds. But there are anomalies. What kind of anomalies? She asked, already preparing the medical bay for whatever strange anatomy they might encounter. The creature appears to be severely injured, yet its vital signs suggest it's been performing complex operations on itself during flight. The ship's interior shows signs of what can only be described as surgery conducted in zero gravity, without proper sterile conditions, using tools that our sensors classify as both medical instruments and weapons. Zixth's bioluminescent patches darkened with concern. Self-surgery was not unknown among certain species, but performing it in the vacuum of space suggested either desperate circumstances or a level of pain tolerance that bordered on the impossible. The docking clamps engaged with a shuddering vibration that traveled through the station's superstructure. Emergency protocols activated automatically, containing the primitive vessel in a sterile force field, while atmospheric analyzers determined the safest approach for first contact. Atmosphere is nitrogen-oxygen-based, reported the AI. Primitive but stable. Life form is conscious but showing signs of severe trauma. Warning: multiple unknown devices detected aboard vessel. Caution advised. Dr. Vexan's energy form brightened with interest. Unknown devices, weapons, classification uncertain. Devices appear to serve dual purposes. Recommend immediate medical intervention for life form, followed by thorough analysis of technology. Zeixt gathered her medical kit, checking the universal translator implant that would allow communication with virtually any sentient species. The Galactic Medical Treaty required that all patients be treated regardless of their technological level or political affiliations, but she couldn't shake a growing sense of unease about this particular rescue. The airlock cycled, and the primitive vessel's hatch opened with a grinding mechanical sound that made Zixtha's sensitive hearing organs recoil. What emerged made her 6 eyes widen in simultaneous shock. The creature was indeed bipedal, standing roughly 2 meters tall on 2 powerful appendages. Its skin was a pale pink color, covered in what appeared to be synthetic materials. Clothing, she realized. But what truly caught her attention was the obvious evidence of recent trauma. The being's left arm was secured against its torso with strips of fabric, clearly improvised medical care. Dark stains on its clothing suggested significant blood loss. But the creature was walking, moving under its own power despite injuries that would have incapacitated most known species. As it stepped into the medical bay, its small, forward-facing eyes scanned the environment with an alertness that spoke of intelligence and caution. "Greetings." The universal translator converted its vocalizations. The sound was harsh, guttural, completely unlike the melodic communications of most civilized species. I am Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Perseverance. I require medical assistance and request sanctuary under whatever diplomatic protocols you recognize. Earth. The name was unfamiliar, which meant this species, these humans as the translator identified them, were from beyond the known reaches of civilization. A first contact situation. Dr. Vexman materialized more solidly, his energy form taking on a roughly humanoid shape to avoid alarming their patient. Welcome, Commander Chen. I am Dr. Vexan, Chief Medical Officer of this station. You are under the protection of the Galactic Medical Treaty. We will treat your injuries and discuss your situation once you are stable. The human nodded, a gesture the translator identified as acknowledgement. Thank you. I should warn you, I've been performing field surgery on myself for the past 6 hours. I may have done some damage that your equipment will need to correct. Zixtha's patches flickered rapidly, the Kethmari equivalent of shocked surprise. 6 hours of self-surgery? The implications were staggering. Either the species had pain tolerance beyond anything in known biology, or they had developed techniques that made such procedures survivable. Please, lie down on the diagnostic platform, she said gently, guiding the human to the medical bed. As Commander Chen complied, Zixith activated the station's most advanced medical scanners. What appeared on her displays made her question everything she thought she knew about biology and medicine. The human's skeletal structure was incredibly dense, far beyond what should be necessary for a creature from a standard gravity world. The muscular system showed adaptation for extreme stress and rapid healing. But most shocking was the evidence of recent surgical intervention. Commander Chen, Dr. Vexan's voice carried a note of amazement that Zixtha had never heard from the ancient physician. Our scans indicate that you removed a piece of shrapnel from your abdominal cavity, sutured internal bleeding, and set a compound fracture in your arm, all while piloting your vessel through space. How is this possible? The human's face, Zixtha was beginning to recognize the expressions as emotional indicators, showed what the translator identified as a mixture of pain and dark humor. Standard emergency medical training. Every deep space pilot learns field surgery. When you're months away from the nearest medical facility, you either learn to fix yourself or you die.
Months? Zixth's patches pulsed rapidly.
Your species travels for months between medical facilities? That's barbaric. Commander Chen's expression shifted to what the translator labeled as amusement. Our space is a little emptier than yours, apparently. Earth is our only inhabited world, and our medical technology is probably primitive compared to what you have here. We make do with what works. Dr. Vexen began detailed scans while Zixt prepared to treat the obvious injuries. But as she opened the human's medical kit to understand what tools had been used for the self-surgery, her 6 eyes focused on something that made her entire body freeze in shock. The tool was massive compared to anything in her own medical kit. Nearly 30 centimeters long, its design was both elegant and terrifying. Multiple sharp implements folded into a single handle, with extensions and additions that spoke of a level of versatility she had never seen. But what truly stunned her was the obvious signs of recent use, and the realization that this single tool had been used to perform multiple complex surgical procedures. Commander Chen, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This tool, what do you call it? The human glanced over and smiled, an expression that revealed sharp, white teeth that looked disturbingly predatory. That's my multi-tool, standard issue for all deep space personnel. Swiss Army knife design, but adapted for emergency medical procedures. It's got everything you need for field surgery, equipment repair, and basic survival situations. Zixt held the device with trembling appendages. The weight was substantial, suggesting materials far denser than standard medical implements. Each folded implement was precision-engineered, sharp enough to cut through metal, yet precise enough for delicate surgical work. She counted over 20 different tools integrated into the design. You performed surgery with this? She asked, incredulous. Primary surgical procedures, yes. It's not ideal, but it's designed for exactly this kind of emergency. The laser scalpel attachment cauterizes as it cuts, reducing bleeding. The microsuture dispenser handles internal work, and the bone setter can manage most fracture types. Like I said, when you're alone in space, you need tools that can handle anything. Doctor. Vexan's energy form flickered rapidly, his species equivalent of deep thought. Commander Chen, the complexity of this device suggests a level of technological integration that we associate with advanced civilizations. Yet your ship appears to be built with primitive materials. The human's expression darkened slightly. We build with what we have, Doctor. Earth doesn't have the resources for exotic materials or energy manipulation like you obviously do, but we've gotten very good at making simple materials do complex jobs. When your survival depends on equipment that can't fail, you learn to build things that are tough rather than elegant. Zixth continued examining the multi-tool, her amazement growing with each discovery. Hidden compartments contain medical nanites, technology that should have required clean room facilities to manufacture. Integrated power cells that could provide energy for hours of continuous operation. Materials that showed no sign of wear despite obvious heavy use. Commander, she said slowly, your species. How long have you been traveling in space? About 300 years, since we developed reliable fusion drives. We've been expanding outward from Earth, establishing colonies and research stations. I was on my way back from a geological survey mission when my ship was damaged in an asteroid field. 300 years. Most species required millennia to develop space travel, and longer still to master the harsh realities of deep space survival. Yet these humans had not only achieved interstellar travel in a fraction of the usual time, they had developed emergency medical techniques that surpassed anything in Zixth's experience. As she began treating Commander Chen's injuries, Zixth found herself constantly amazed by her patient's physiology. The human's pain tolerance was extraordinary. Procedures that would require full anesthesia for most species were endured with nothing more than controlled breathing and grit determination. The healing rate was accelerated beyond normal parameters, suggesting either genetic modification or natural adaptation to high-stress environments. Your species, Dr. Call, Vexan said as he worked, has clearly adapted to hostile environments. Your bone density, muscle development, and nervous system all suggest evolution under extreme stress. Commander Chen nodded. Earth isn't exactly a gentle world, Doctor. High gravity, violent weather, predators that would terrify most sentient species we've encountered. We evolved to survive, not to live comfortably. You've encountered other species? Zixth asked, surprised. A few. Most of them were either too primitive to communicate with or too advanced to be interested in contact. We've learned to be self-sufficient because we're usually alone out there. The implications hit Zixth like a physical blow. This species, these humans, had been exploring space alone, without the benefit of galactic civilization, developing their own solutions to problems that most species solved through cooperation and shared technology. They had been forced to become entirely self-reliant, creating individuals capable of performing surgery on themselves in the vacuum of space. As the treatment continued, Commander Chen proved to be an ideal patient. Cooperative, stoic, and remarkably knowledgeable about her own physiology. She answered questions about human biology with the precision of a trained medic, providing information that helped Zixth adapt treatment protocols designed for other species. Your cardiovascular system is remarkable, Zixth observed as she worked. The redundancy and efficiency suggest adaptation to low oxygen environments. Earth's atmosphere is thinner than optimal at high altitudes, and our early space habitats weren't always perfectly pressurized. Natural selection favored efficiency, Commander Chen explained. Plus, our military and exploration training emphasizes functioning under stress. We push our bodies to adapt. The casual mention of military training sent another chill through Zixth's consciousness. A species that had developed advanced medical techniques, sophisticated tools, and extreme physical resilience in the context of military necessity was something the galaxy had never encountered. As the initial treatment concluded, Commander Chen sat up on the medical platform, moving with an ease that should have been impossible given her recent injuries. The accelerated healing protocols that Zixth had applied were working at a rate that exceeded all expectations. Thank you for your help, the human said, her voice carrying genuine gratitude. I know this probably isn't the kind of patient you usually see. Doctor? Vexan's form stabilized as he completed his diagnostic review. Commander Chen, in my 8,000 years of practice, I have never encountered a species quite like yours. Your medical knowledge, your equipment, and your physical capabilities represent a unique adaptation to challenges that most civilizations solve through technology rather than biology. Commander Chen smiled again, and Zixth noticed that the expression now seemed less predatory and more genuinely warm. We've had to become resourceful. When you're exploring empty space with primitive technology, every individual has to be capable of handling emergencies independently. This tool, Zixth said, still holding the multi-tool with something approaching reverence, represents engineering and medical knowledge that our finest specialists would struggle to achieve. Yet you carry it as standard equipment. Every deep space pilot has one, Commander Chen confirmed. They're manufactured on Earth using techniques developed over generations of trial and error. When failure means death, you learn to build things that don't fail. The conversation was interrupted by the station's AI announcing an incoming priority transmission from the Galactic Council. Doctor. Vexan's energy form brightened with concern as he accessed the message. Commander Chen, he said slowly. It appears that your arrival has attracted attention from the highest levels of galactic government. The Council is requesting immediate information about your species and your technology. Commander Chen's expression grew cautious. What kind of information? Everything. Your location of origin, your technological capabilities, your intentions in this region of space, and particularly, he paused, the nature of your medical and survival equipment. Zixt felt a chill of premonition. The Galactic Council's interest in new species was rarely benign, especially when that species demonstrated capabilities that could be seen as threatening. She looked at the human. This remarkable individual who had survived injuries that should have been fatal, performed surgery on herself in space, and carried technology that surpassed anything in known civilization, and realized that Commander Chen represented something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that didn't need the galaxy's protection, cooperation, or approval to survive in the harsh realities of space. A species that had developed independence through necessity and capability through adversity. And Zixt was beginning to suspect that the galaxy might not be prepared for what that meant. The Galactic Council's response came faster than Zixt had expected. Within 2 standard hours of their initial transmission, a full diplomatic vessel had arrived at Medical Station Kepler 442b, carrying Ambassador Threndok of the Hegemony, the galaxy's most powerful military alliance, along with a team of xenobiologists, military analysts, and technology specialists. Zixt watched through the observation deck as the sleek vessel docked its organic curves and energy-based propulsion systems representing the pinnacle of galactic civilization. The contrast with Commander Chen's crude but functional ship couldn't have been more stark, yet she found herself wondering which approach was truly more advanced. Nervous? Commander Chen asked, joining her at the observation window. The human moved with fluid grace, despite having undergone major surgery just hours before. Another impossible feat that challenged everything Zixtha thought she knew about biology. Should I be? Zixtha replied, her bioluminescent patches flickering with anxiety patterns she couldn't quite suppress. Commander Chen studied the diplomatic vessel with those sharp, forward-facing eyes that spoke of a predator species. In my experience, when governments get interested in something, it usually means they're either afraid of it or want to control it. Sometimes both. The casual wisdom in that statement struck Zixtha as both profound and disturbing. How many first-contact situations had these humans experienced to develop such a pragmatic view of interstellar politics? Dr. Vexban materialized beside them, his energy form more agitated than Zixt had ever seen. Commander Chen, I must inform you that this is not a standard diplomatic contact. Ambassador Threndok is requesting immediate access to your vessel, your equipment, and what he terms full technological disclosure. And if I refuse? Commander Chen asked, her tone remaining perfectly calm. The hegemony has enforcement protocols for uncooperative alien species. Dr. Grove, Vexan admitted reluctantly. They would classify you as a potential threat pending full investigation. Commander Chen nodded slowly, and Zixtha caught a glimpse of something cold and calculating in the human's expression. I see. And how many species have cooperated with these protocols in the past? All of them, Dr. Creel. Vexan replied. Resistance to council authority is inadvisable. Because they're too powerful to resist? Because they control access to galactic trade, technology, and protection. No species can survive isolation in modern space. Commander Chen's smile was sharp and predatory again. Doctor, my species has been surviving in isolation for 3 centuries. We've gotten quite good at it. Before Dr. Vexan could respond, the station's AI announced the arrival of the diplomatic party. Ambassador Threndok was a Vorthak, a crystalline humanoid species known for their inflexible adherence to protocol and their military prowess. His faceted body reflected light in patterns that indicated high status and considerable authority. Greetings, representatives of Station Kepler 442b. His voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that the universal translator rendered as formal but commanding. I am Ambassador Threndok, speaking for the Galactic Hegemony. I am here to conduct first contact protocols with the individual known as Commander Chen, of the species designation human. Zixtha noticed that Commander Chen stepped forward without hesitation, meeting the ambassador's imposing presence with confident directness. Ambassador Threndok, I'm Commander Sarah Chen, representing humanity and the Earth Colonial Authority. I appreciate your interest in establishing diplomatic contact. Indeed, your presence in this region has raised significant concerns within the Council. Your technology appears to be both primitive and sophisticated. Your biological capabilities exceed known parameters, and your medical equipment suggests military applications. We require full disclosure of your species' capabilities and intentions. Commander Chen's expression didn't change, but Sixth caught a subtle shift in her posture, a readiness that spoke of combat training. I'm happy to share information about humanity, Ambassador, but I should point out that we haven't requested membership in your galactic community, nor have we threatened any species or territory. I'm simply a damaged traveler seeking medical assistance. Threndok's crystalline structure darkened, a sign of displeasure among his people. Commander Chen, every spacefaring species falls under Council jurisdiction for security assessment. Your independence is not legally recognized until formal evaluation is complete. Legal according to whose authority? Commander Chen asked, her tone remaining polite but carrying an edge that made Zixth's patches flicker nervously. According to the galactic hegemony, which has maintained peace and order in this region for over 50,000 years. Impressive, Commander Chen acknowledged. But humanity isn't from this region, Ambassador. We're from somewhere your hegemony has never reached, and we've been maintaining our own peace and order quite successfully. The exchange was interrupted by Dr. Kestan, the hegemony's chief xenobiologist, who had been scanning Commander Chen with increasingly sophisticated sensors. His insectoid features were rigid with shock as he announced his findings. Ambassador, the preliminary biological assessment is complete. This species exhibits adaptation characteristics that should be impossible for a naturally evolved life form. Enhanced bone density, accelerated healing factors, neural processing speeds beyond the galactic norm, and pain tolerance that exceeds military-grade conditioning protocols. Threndok's attention focused entirely on Commander Chen. Explain these adaptations. Natural selection, she replied simply. Earth is what you might call a high-stress evolutionary environment. High gravity, dangerous predators, extreme weather variations, and limited resources. Species that couldn't adapt didn't survive. And your medical technology? Dr. Keston interjected, producing Commander Chen's multi-tool. This device integrates functions that require separate specialized equipment in all known civilizations. The engineering sophistication suggests post-scarcity manufacturing capabilities, yet your ship appears to be built with primitive materials. Commander Chen glanced at Zixtha, who realized the human was including her in the conversation despite the formal diplomatic setting. We build what works, Doctor. When you can't rely on external support, everything has to be multifunctional and durable. That tool is designed to last decades under extreme conditions while performing dozens of different functions. Demonstrate, Ambassador Threndok commanded. I'm sorry? Commander Chen's tone remained polite, but there was steel underneath. Demonstrate the capabilities of your equipment. Explain the procedures you used for self-surgery. Provide detailed specifications for your medical protocols. Zixtharth watched Commander Chen consider the request, and for a moment she saw something in the human's eyes that made her understand why Earth had produced a species capable of surviving alone in hostile space. It was the look of someone who had been underestimated many times before, and who had learned to use that underestimation as a weapon. Of course, Ambassador, Commander Chen agreed, but I should warn you. Human medical procedures can be quite disturbing to species that haven't adapted to high-trauma environments. She retrieved her multi-tool and began unfolding its various implements, explaining each one with the casual competence of someone who had used them all in life-or-death situations. The laser scalpel that could cut through metal or flesh with equal precision. The bone setter that could realign fractures while simultaneously stimulating accelerated healing. The microsuture dispenser that could seal internal injuries in zero gravity. But it was her demonstration of the pain management system that truly shocked the assembled aliens. The device could deliver localized neural suppression, but it was clearly designed to allow the patient to remain conscious and functional during procedures.
You perform surgery while remaining awake? Dr.
Keston asked, his voice carrying disbelief. Usually, Commander Chen confirmed. In emergency situations, you can't afford to be unconscious. You need to remain alert, make decisions, and often continue operating equipment while treating injuries. That's torture, whispered one of the junior diplomats, a delicate sylph whose species had eliminated physical pain through genetic modification millennia ago. That's survival, Commander Chen corrected gently. When you're months from help and something goes wrong, you either fix it yourself or you die. Pain is just information. It tells you what's wrong and how urgently it needs to be fixed. Ambassador Threndok exchanged rapid harmonic communications with his team before addressing Commander Chen again. Your species presents a unique situation. Your technological development is uneven but highly specialized for survival. Your biological adaptations suggest exposure to extreme environments over extended periods. Your social structures appear to be militarized for resource competition. Our social structures are adapted for exploration and survival in hostile environments, Commander Chen corrected. We organize around competence and reliability because those are the qualities that keep people alive in space. And your weapons technology? Threndok asked bluntly. Commander Chen's smile became distinctly predatory. What weapons technology, Ambassador? Your medical equipment clearly has military applications. Your tool could serve as a weapon in close combat. Your knowledge of anatomy and surgical procedures could be used to inflict harm rather than healing. You're right, Commander Chen admitted cheerfully. But the same could be said of any advanced medical technology. A surgical laser can cut through armor as easily as flesh. Knowledge of biological systems can be used to harm or heal. The difference is in the application. And how do we know your intentions are peaceful? Doctor, Kastan demanded. Commander Chen's expression grew serious. Because, Doctor, if my intentions were hostile, this conversation would have gone very differently. I'm one injured pilot with basic equipment. If I represented a military threat, do you really think I would have docked peacefully and submitted to medical examination? The implications of her words hung in the air like a physical presence. Zixth realized that Commander Chen was subtly indicating that humans were capable of much more than they had revealed, but were choosing peaceful contact. Threndok's crystalline structure darkened further. Commander Chen, the Council requires access to your ship's database, your navigation records, and the location of your home system. I'm afraid that's not possible, Commander Chen replied, her tone remaining perfectly polite. You refuse Council authority? I'm explaining practical limitations. My ship's database was damaged in the asteroid field that injured me. My navigation records are encrypted with quantum protocols that can only be accessed from Earth. And the location of my home system? She paused. Well, that's not really my information to share, is it? Explain. I'm a pilot, Ambassador. I follow orders and complete missions. Decisions about interstellar diplomacy are made by people much more qualified than I am. Zixth admired the elegant way Commander Chen had just revealed that humanity had sophisticated command structures and classified information protocols, while appearing to be completely cooperative. Dr. Keston activated additional scanning equipment, directing it at Commander Chen's ship. Ambassador, the vessel's construction is even more anomalous than initial scans indicated. The hull materials appear to be standard metallic alloys, but they're arranged in patterns that suggest knowledge of advanced engineering principles. The fusion drive system is primitive but remarkably efficient, and there are components that our sensors cannot identify. Unknown components? Threndok's attention sharpened. Materials that don't match any known substances in our database. They appear to be synthetic, but manufactured using techniques we don't recognize. Commander Chen's expression gave away nothing, but Zix thought a flicker of something that might have been amusement. Earth manufacturing tends to be practical rather than theoretical. We use whatever materials and techniques get the job done. The investigation continued for hours, with the hegemony team becoming increasingly frustrated by their inability to fully understand human technology. Every answer they received raised new questions, and Commander Chen proved to be a master of providing information that was completely truthful, but revealed nothing sensitive. When they examined her clothing, they discovered fabrics that were simultaneously simple and sophisticated, woven from materials that were incredibly durable yet maintained flexibility and comfort. When they analyzed her equipment, they found tools that combined multiple functions in ways that challenged conventional engineering wisdom. But it was the examination of Commander Chen's personal medical records that provided the greatest shock. The data pad she carried contained detailed information about her own physiology, medical history, and treatment protocols. The level of self-knowledge was extraordinary. She understood her own body's systems with the precision of a trained physician. Commander Chen, Doctor, Kestan said slowly, these records indicate that you've performed surgery on yourself multiple times in the past. 17 separate procedures over the last 5 years. Occupational hazard, she replied with a shrug. Deep space exploration is dangerous work. Equipment failures, accidents, unexpected encounters. You learn to handle medical emergencies as part of the job. And you carry detailed anatomical and medical reference materials? Everyone does. Standard survival protocol. The casual way she mentioned that every human carried advanced medical knowledge and surgical capabilities sent a chill through the assembled aliens. They were beginning to understand that they weren't dealing with an individual anomaly, but with a representative of an entire species that had adapted to levels of self-sufficiency that bordered on the impossible. Ambassador Threndok concluded the formal examination with obvious frustration. Commander Chen, your species presents complications that the Council has never encountered. Your technology is simultaneously primitive and advanced. Your biological capabilities exceed normal parameters, and your cultural adaptations suggest preparation for conflicts we cannot assess. We're prepared for survival, Ambassador. Conflict is just one of many challenges that space presents. The Council will require time to evaluate this information and determine appropriate protocols for future contact with your species. Commander Chen nodded graciously. Of course. In the meantime, I need to repair my ship and continue my mission. Your mission? Returning to Earth to report on my geological survey. My supervisors will be expecting a full report. The casual mention that she was expected to return, that her people would be looking for her if she disappeared, was another elegant reminder that humanity was not as isolated or vulnerable as they might appear. As the diplomatic party prepared to leave, Zixt found herself alone with Commander Chen in the medical bay. The human was checking her healing injuries with the competent efficiency of someone who had performed the assessment many times before. Commander, she said quietly, was any of what you told them true? Commander Chen's smile was genuine and warm. All of it, Nurse Zixta. That's the beauty of the truth. It's much stranger than any lie I could have invented. But you didn't tell them everything. They didn't ask the right questions, Commander Chen replied. They assumed that because our technology looks primitive, we must be primitive. They assumed that because I'm alone and injured, humanity must be weak. They assumed that because we're new to them, we must be new to space. And those assumptions are wrong? Commander Chen's expression grew distant as she looked out at the stars.
Nurse 60, humanity has been alone in space for 3 centuries.
We've encountered wonders and terrors that would break the sanity of species that have never had to survive on their own. We've learned to be self-sufficient because we've had to be. We've learned to be strong because weakness means death in the void. And now, for the first time, we've found that we're not alone in the galaxy. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to find out what that means. As Commander Chen returned to repairing her ship, Zixta realized that the human had revealed more in that brief conversation than in hours of diplomatic interrogation. Humanity wasn't seeking to join galactic civilization. They were offering it a choice. The galaxy could meet them as equals, or it could learn the hard way what a species adapted for survival could accomplish when threatened. Either way, the universe was about to change. 3 days after the diplomatic encounter, Zixt found herself spending more time with Commander Chen than her duties technically required. The human was fascinating in ways that went far beyond medical curiosity. Every conversation revealed new depths of knowledge and experience that challenged fundamental assumptions about civilization and survival. They were in the station's observation lounge, sharing what Chen called coffee, a stimulant beverage from Earth that was remarkably similar to several galactic alternatives, when the emergency began. The first sign was a priority alert from the station's AI. Warning, multiple vessels approaching on attack vector. Configuration matches Skarn Raider formation. Estimated time to weapons range, 17 minutes. Zixt's bioluminescent patches flashed with alarm patterns as other staff members began the emergency lockdown procedures. The Skarn were one of the galaxy's most feared predator species, bipedal reptilians who had rejected galactic civilization in favor of raiding and conquest. Medical Station Kepler. 442b was supposed to be neutral territory, but the Skarn had been known to ignore such treaties when they needed medical supplies or wanted to send a message to the hegemony. How many ships? Commander Chen asked, her voice carrying the calm professionalism that Zixta had learned to associate with the human's crisis management mode. Scanning indicates 12 vessels of various classes, the AI reported. Station defenses are limited to deterrent-class shields and diplomatic immunity protocols. Dr. Vexan materialized in the lounge, his energy form flickering with stress patterns. All non-essential personnel are to move to the station's core sections. Essential staff will prepare for possible evacuation. And the patients, Zixt asked, her training overriding her fear. We'll protect them as best we can under medical treaty provisions. The Skarn typically honor medical neutrality, eventually. Commander Chen stood and walked to the observation port. studying the approaching ships with those predator's eyes. "They're not here for medical supplies."
How can you tell, Doctor?
Vexen asked. "Wrong formation. Too many ships for a supply raid, wrong vector for hit-and-run tactics. This is either a show of force or a deliberate provocation." Zixth was struck again by the casual way Chen analyzed military threats. "You have experience with space combat?" "Some. Earth's expansion hasn't been unopposed. We've encountered hostile species before, and we've learned to recognize threat patterns." The implications of that statement hit Zixth like a physical blow. Humanity had been fighting space wars while the galaxy remained oblivious to their existence. They had developed combat experience and tactical knowledge without the benefit of galactic military technology or alliance support. "Commander Chen," Dr. Vexen said carefully, "the Skarn are considered one of the galaxy's most dangerous military threats. Their technology is nearly equivalent to hegemony standards, and their tactical abilities are legendary. If you have knowledge that could help protect this station," Chen continued studying the approaching ships. "Doctor, what would happen if the Skarn attacked this station? They would likely take control temporarily, seize medical supplies and equipment, possibly take hostages to deter hegemony response. The station would eventually be liberated, but casualties could be significant." "And if the station resisted?" Dr. Vexan's form dimmed. "The station has no military capability. Resistance would be suicide." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And my ship would likely be destroyed or captured as a prize." For the first time since Zixth had met her, Commander Chen's expression showed genuine anger. It was a cold, controlled fury that spoke of someone who had faced betrayal before and learned to channel rage into purpose. "That's unfortunate," she said quietly. "I have standing orders about protecting my ship and its cargo." "What kind of cargo?" Zixth asked, sudden suspicion flaring. "Geological samples, primarily, but also data about Earth's location and defensive capabilities, information that my government considers classified." The casual way she mentioned Earth's defensive capabilities sent another chill through Zixth. How many assumptions about human weakness were about to be proven wrong? The station shuddered as the Skarn ships entered weapons range. Warning klaxons echoed through the corridors as automated systems announced the arrival of hostile forces. Through the observation port, Zixth could see the distinctive angular silhouettes of Skarn warships. Predatory designs that spoke of a species that had evolved for conquest. "This is War Leader Krex of the Skarn Empire," a harsh voice announced through the station's communication system. "Medical Station Kepler. 442B is now under our authority. Prepare to receive boarding parties. Resistance will result in the elimination of all aboard." "Doctor." Vexan's form stabilized as he accessed the station's communication systems. "War Leader Krex. This is Dr. Farico. Vexan, Chief Medical Officer. This station operates under Galactic Medical Treaty Protocols. We are neutral territory providing humanitarian aid to all species. Your neutrality is irrelevant, Doctor. We require medical supplies, technical information, and any military intelligence you may have gathered from recent contacts with unknown species." Zixtha realized with growing horror that the Skarn had somehow learned about Commander Chen's arrival. The timing of their attack was not coincidental. They were specifically seeking information about humanity. Chen moved away from the observation port and began walking toward the station's docking bays with purposeful strides. "Where are you going?" Zixtha called after her. "To my ship," Chen replied without turning around. "I need to retrieve something. It's too dangerous. The Skarn will be boarding any moment." Chen paused and looked back with that predatory smile. "Nurse Sixth, I appreciate your concern, but the scan just made a serious mistake." "What mistake?" "They threatened my ship." Before Zixtha could respond, Commander Chen was moving through the corridors with fluid speed. Her injuries, which should have left her bedridden for days, seemed to have been completely forgotten. She moved like someone who had trained for exactly this kind of emergency. Zixtha followed, her professional instincts overriding common sense. As they reached the docking bay, the first Skarn boarding craft was attaching to the station's hull. The alien warriors were 7-foot-tall reptilian predators, armored in powered combat suits, and carrying weapons that could cut through most known materials. Chen had already reached her ship and was accessing what appeared to be a concealed compartment in the cargo hold. What she withdrew made Zix's eyes widen in shock. The device was massive, nearly 2 meters long and obviously designed for combat. Its sleek lines and exotic materials spoke of technology far more advanced than anything Chen had previously revealed. But what truly stunned Zixta was the casual competence with which the human handled the weapon. "Commander," she whispered, "what is that?" "Emergency defense system," Chen replied, checking the weapon's status displays with practiced efficiency. "Standard equipment for deep space exploration. You never know what you're going to encounter out there." "That's a weapon of mass destruction." Chen's smile was sharp and completely without humor. No, Zixta. That's a tool for dealing with aggressive neighbors." The first Skarn warriors breached the station's hull in Docking Bay 5, their heavy weapons cutting through the emergency barriers like paper. Their leader, identifiable by the elaborate crest on his armor, immediately began scanning the area with sophisticated sensors. "Humans located," he announced to his troops. "Priority target confirmed. Eliminate all witnesses." Commander Chen stepped into view, the massive weapon held casually in her hands. "Gentlemen," she called out, her voice carrying clearly through the bay's atmosphere. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." The Skarn warriors spun toward her, their weapons tracking with reptilian speed. War Leader Krext's mandibles spread in what passed for amusement among his species. "The primitive human shows courage," he hissed. "You will provide excellent entertainment before you die."
"Actually," Chen said pleasantly, "I was thinking more along the lines of giving you one chance to withdraw peacefully." Kext's laughter was a sound like breaking bones.
"Foolish creature, do you not understand what you face? We are Skarn. We are the terror of the galaxy. Your primitive species is nothing before our might." Chen's expression didn't change. "I see. Well, thank you for clarifying your position." What happened next challenged everything Zixta thought she knew about physics, technology, and the nature of combat in space. Commander Chen's weapon discharged with a sound like controlled thunder, and the energy beam that emerged was unlike anything in known military technology. The blast struck War Leader Krextha's power armor and simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased. The Skarn leader had time for one moment of shocked realization before the beam reached his body and erased him as well. The remaining warriors opened fire, their advanced weapons discharging streams of plasma and particle beams that should have vaporized any organic target. Chen moved like liquid lightning, the massive weapon in her hands tracking targets with impossible precision. Each shot erased another Skarn warrior from existence, leaving no debris, no energy discharge, no evidence they had ever been there. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, the docking bay was empty except for Zixith and Commander Chen. "By the deep currents," Zixith whispered, her entire body trembling. "What kind of weapon is that?" "Quantum phase disruptor," Chen replied as casually as if discussing medical equipment. "It temporarily separates matter from normal space-time. Very effective against hostile contacts. You erased them from reality. Temporarily. They'll reappear in normal space about 12 hours from now, roughly 4 light-years away from here." Confused but unharmed. Before Zixta could fully process this information, Chen was moving again, heading for the station's communication center. She accessed the systems with competence that suggested familiarity with galactic technology, then opened a channel to the remaining Skarn ships. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Perseverance," she announced, her voice carrying across space with perfect clarity. "I'm speaking to the remaining Skarn ships, currently threatening Medical Station Kepler 442b. The response came immediately, a chorus of snarls and threats from multiple ship captains demanding to know what had happened to their boarding party. "Your boarding party has been neutralized without casualties," Chen continued. "They will be returned to normal space in approximately 12 hours at coordinates I'm transmitting now. Consider this a demonstration of human defensive capabilities." "Impossible," screeched one of the ship captains. "No species possesses such technology." "Apparently we do," Chen replied mildly. "Now, you have 2 choices. You can withdraw immediately and chalk this up to a learning experience. Or you can discover what other capabilities my species has developed during our time alone in space. We are Skarn. We do not retreat from primitives." Chen's smile was visible in her voice. "Captain, I'm going to give you some free intelligence about humanity. We've been alone in hostile space for 3 centuries. We've encountered aggressive alien species before. We've developed solutions for dealing with them. What you just witnessed was our least destructive option. You threaten us? I'm offering you information that could save your ships and crews. Humanity has standing protocols for dealing with unprovoked attacks on our personnel or allies. This medical station is providing aid to a human citizen, which makes it temporarily under our protection. the communications channel filled with angry Skarn voices debating tactics and threats. Chen waited patiently, checking her weapon's charge status with the calm competence of someone who had done this many times before. Finally, a different voice came through. Older, more controlled. "This is Fleet Commander Vosran, human. What are your terms for our withdrawal?" "No terms necessary, Commander. Simply leave this system and forget you encountered us here. In exchange, I won't need to demonstrate any of our more permanent defensive systems. And if we refuse?" Chen's voice carried a note of genuine regret. "Then this becomes a military engagement between the Skarn Empire and humanity. And Fleet Commander, I really don't think your government wants to be the first to discover what 3 centuries of military development in isolation has produced." The silence stretched for long minutes. When it broke, Fleet Commander Vosran's voice carried a note of reluctant respect. "We withdraw, human. But this encounter will be reported to our War Council." "I expected nothing less, Commander. Fair voyages." The Scar ships began withdrawing, their formation dissolving as they accelerated away from the system. Within minutes, they had jumped to hyperspace, leaving the medical station in peaceful silence. Vexan materialized beside Chen, his energy form stabilized but flickering with amazement. "Commander Chen, what you just accomplished, the implications, are exactly what I told Ambassador Threndok," Chen finished. "Humanity has been preparing for situations like this for a long time. We've learned to be very good at surviving in hostile environments." Zixth found her voice finally. "Commander, that weapon, that technology, it's beyond anything in galactic civilization." Chen nodded thoughtfully. Earth's research priorities have been focused on practical problems rather than theoretical advancement. When you're alone in space and encounter hostile species, you develop effective solutions quickly. But the implications for galactic balance of power are for politicians to worry about, Chen said firmly. "I'm a pilot and explorer, not a diplomat or military strategist. My job is to complete my mission and return home safely." Dr. Vexan's form brightened with sudden understanding. "Your mission?" "It wasn't really geological survey, was it?" Chen's smile was warm but revealed nothing. "Doctor, I surveyed geological formations on 17 different worlds during my journey. That information will be very valuable to Earth's expansion planning. But that wasn't your primary mission." "My primary mission was to determine whether humanity was still alone in the galaxy," Chen admitted. "And if not, to assess what we had found." The weight of that statement settled over them like a physical presence. Humanity had been actively searching for galactic civilization, preparing for first contact, developing contingency plans for every possible scenario. "And your assessment?" Zixth asked quietly. Commander Chen looked out at the stars, her expression distant and thoughtful. "The galaxy is populated by species that have forgotten how to survive independently. They've grown comfortable with shared technology, protected trade routes, and diplomatic solutions to conflict. They've become dependent on civilization in ways that make them vulnerable to anyone who hasn't. And humanity has never had the luxury of depending on anyone else," Chen replied. "We've learned to be self-sufficient because we've had to be. We've developed capabilities that the galaxy doesn't know are possible because we've faced challenges the galaxy has never imagined." Dr. Vexan's form flickered rapidly, his equivalent of deep thought.
"Commander, when you return to Earth, what will you report?" Chen was quiet for a long moment, considering her response carefully.
"I'll report that we've made contact with a galactic civilization that shows both great potential and significant vulnerabilities."
"I'll recommend that humanity proceed with caution, offering cooperation while maintaining our independence. And if the galaxy doesn't accept those terms?"
Commander Chen's smile was sharp and predatory.
"Then the galaxy will learn that 3 centuries of survival in hostile space has made humanity very good at protecting what's ours." As Zixth watched the human prepare to depart, she realized that first contact was far from over. Humanity had announced their presence not as supplicants seeking membership in galactic society, but as equals, offering partnership on their own terms. The question was whether the galaxy was wise enough to accept that offer, or whether it would choose to discover what humanity could accomplish when threatened. Either way, nothing would ever be the same. The aftermath of the Skarn encounter rippled through galactic civilization faster than hyperspace communication networks could carry the news. Within hours of the incident, Medical Station Kepler, 442b, was receiving priority visits from representatives of every major government, trade federation, and military alliance in the known galaxy. Zixth found herself at the center of the storm, repeatedly interviewed by intelligence analysts, xenobiologists, and military specialists who couldn't quite believe the reports they were receiving. The idea that a single individual from an unknown species had effortlessly neutralized an entire Skarn boarding party using technology that defied known physics was challenging fundamental assumptions about galactic power structures. Commander Chen, meanwhile, continued her ship repairs with the same methodical competence she had displayed throughout their acquaintance. She answered questions when asked, provided clarification when requested, but maintained the professional courtesy of someone who understood that she was the subject of intense scrutiny. It was Dr. Paul Vexan who finally asked the question that everyone was thinking but no one had dared voice. "Commander Chen," he said during what had become their daily medical consultation, "are you really just a geological surveyor?" Chen's smile was genuinely amused. "Doctor, I have degrees in xenogeology, mineral extraction, and planetary formation theory from Earth's Colonial University. I've spent 5 years surveying potential colony worlds and resource extraction sites. Everything I've told you about my profession has been completely accurate, but the weapons training, the combat experience, the tactical knowledge are standard requirements for deep space exploration," Chen finished. "Doctor, when you're operating alone in unknown space, potentially months from any support, you need to be prepared for any situation. Every deep space explorer is trained in combat, emergency medicine, mechanical repair, xenobiology, diplomatic protocol, and about 30 other specializations." Zixth's patches flickered with amazement. "Every explorer? How is that possible?" "Necessity," Chen replied simply. "Earth doesn't have the luxury of specialized personnel for every possible situation. When you send someone into the unknown, they have to be capable of handling whatever they encounter." The implications were staggering. If every human explorer possessed the capabilities that Chen had demonstrated, then humanity had effectively created a civilization of individuals who were each equivalent to entire specialist teams from other species. "Commander," Dr. Vexan said carefully, "the weapon you used against the Skarn, how many humans carry similar equipment?" "All of us," Chen replied without hesitation. "Deep space exploration requires effective defensive capabilities. You never know what you're going to encounter out there." Before anyone could respond to this revelation, the station's AI announced another priority arrival. This time, it was a hegemony battle fleet, 12 massive warships led by the command vessel Eternal Vigilance, flagship of Admiral Rexmore, the galaxy's most respected military commander. Chen observed the approaching fleet through the medical bay's viewport, her expression thoughtful. "Impressive ships," she commented. "Clean lines, efficient energy distribution, excellent tactical formation. Your Admiral Rexmore has a reputation for competence." "You know about Admiral Rexmore?" Zixth asked, surprised. "Basic intelligence preparation. When you're entering unknown space, you research everything you can about potential contacts." The casual mention of intelligence preparation sent another chill through Zixth. How much did humanity know about galactic civilization that they weren't revealing? Admiral Rexmore arrived within the hour, his imposing Kelhari physiology and ceremonial armor marking him as one of the galaxy's most decorated military leaders. His blue-scaled skin bore the ritual scars of 40 major campaigns, and his 4 arms moved with the controlled precision of someone who had never lost a battle. "Commander Chen," he said without preamble, his translator rendering his harmonic voice in clipped military tones. "I am Admiral Rexmore of the Galactic Hegemony Defense Fleet. I'm here to discuss the security implications of your species' capabilities." Chen stood and offered the same polite nod she had given to Ambassador Threndok. "Admiral, I'm honored by your visit. I understand you have questions about the recent incident with the Skarn." "Questions?" Rexmore's laugh was like grinding stone. "Commander, you single-handedly neutralized a Skarn boarding party using technology that our best scientists insist should be impossible. The entire galactic military establishment is trying to understand what this means for strategic balance. I defended myself and protected civilians under attack," Chen replied. "Standard defensive protocols." "Standard?" Admiral Rexmore's 4 arms gestured emphatically. "Commander, what you accomplished represents a technological advancement that could reshape galactic civilization. The weapon you used operates on principles that contradict established physics." Chen's expression grew patient, as if she were explaining something basic to a student. "Admiral, with respect, just because your scientists haven't developed certain technologies doesn't mean those technologies are impossible. Earth's research has focused on different priorities than galactic civilization, such as survival in hostile environments, independent operation without external support, defensive systems that don't require massive infrastructure or specialized maintenance. Doctor. Vexan materialized beside them, his energy form bright with scholarly curiosity. Commander, could you explain how your weapon functions? Our sensors detected the energy discharge, but the physics appeared to violate conservation laws. Chen considered the request thoughtfully. It's based on quantum phase manipulation, temporarily shifting matter into a parallel dimensional state. The targets aren't destroyed, just displaced to a different location in space-time. It requires precise calculations and significant power, but it's remarkably effective for non-lethal threat neutralization. Non-lethal? Admiral Rexmore's voice carried disbelief. The Skarn warriors will reappear in normal space unharmed, confused and stranded but alive. Earth's defensive doctrine emphasizes de-escalation when possible. And when de-escalation isn't possible? Commander Chen's smile carried an edge that made Zixt's patches dim with instinctive fear. Then we use more permanent solutions, Admiral. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Captain Thalaris, the station's Centaurian administrator, announced the arrival of what appeared to be an entire diplomatic convoy, ships from the Scientific Consortium, the Trade Federation, the Neutral Worlds Alliance, and even representatives of species that rarely involve themselves in galactic affairs. It appears word has spread, Chen observed mildly. Commander, Admiral Rexmore said with the directness of a military professional, I need to understand the scope of humanity's capabilities. The security implications affect every species in the galaxy. Chen nodded respectfully. Admiral, I understand your concerns, but I should point out that I'm not authorized to discuss detailed information about Earth's defensive capabilities. That's above my clearance level. Clearance level? Doctor, Big San inquired. Military classification system. Information about strategic capabilities is restricted to personnel with appropriate security clearance and need-to-know authorization. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. Humanity had developed sophisticated military command structures, classification protocols, and information security systems. They weren't just technologically advanced, they were organizationally sophisticated. Commander, Admiral Rexmore said slowly, how large is Earth's military? I'm afraid that information is classified, Admiral. Are there other humans operating in this region of space? That information is also classified. What about Earth's location? Chen's smile was polite but firm. Also classified, Admiral. Admiral Rexmore's scaled features darkened with frustration. Commander, the galactic hegemony has maintained peace and security in this region for 50,000 years. We have both the authority and the responsibility to assess potential threats to galactic stability. And I respect that authority within your sphere of influence, Chen replied. But Admiral, Earth isn't within your sphere of influence. We're from somewhere else entirely, operating under different protocols and different authority structures. You refuse to recognize hegemony authority? I recognize hegemony authority over hegemony space and hegemony citizens, Chen clarified. But humanity operates independently, under Earth colonial authority protocols.
The exchange that followed revealed the fundamental disconnect between humanity and galactic civilization.
For 50,000 years, every spacefaring species had eventually been incorporated into the various galactic governments, trade organizations, and mutual defense treaties. The idea of a truly independent civilization operating outside established authority structures was unprecedented. But it was the arrival of Professor Zentara of the Scientific Consortium that provided the most shocking revelation of all. The elderly Volnari researcher had spent millennia studying the theoretical limits of technology and the developmental patterns of advanced civilizations. Commander Chen, she said, her crystalline voice carrying the authority of absolute expertise, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from your defensive weapon. The mathematical principles required for quantum phase manipulation should take any civilization at least 100,000 years to develop. That's interesting, Chen replied politely. How long has humanity been a spacefaring civilization? About 300 standard years, Professor. Professor Zentara's crystalline structure flickered with what Zixta recognized as profound shock. Impossible. The developmental timeline doesn't allow for such rapid advancement. Perhaps, Chen suggested gently. Your developmental models are based on species that had the luxury of gradual, peaceful advancement. Earth's development has been accelerated by necessity. What kind of necessity? Admiral Rexmore demanded. For the first time since Zixith had known her, Commander Chen hesitated. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight that made everyone present understand they were hearing something significant. Admiral Professor Zentara, Dr. Vexan, she said formally. What I'm about to tell you is not classified information, but it may be disturbing to species that have developed within galactic civilization. She paused, looking out at the stars with an expression that spoke of experiences no one else in the room could fully comprehend. Earth is not a peaceful world, and humanity did not develop in isolation by choice. When we first achieved spaceflight, we encountered other species that were hostile, predatory, and technologically advanced. We learned very quickly that the universe contains civilizations that view peaceful species as prey. The silence that followed was profound. The idea that hostile civilizations existed beyond the boundaries of known space challenged fundamental assumptions about galactic security. We fought our first interstellar war when we had barely colonized our own moon, Chen continued. We were vastly outgunned, outnumbered, and outmaneuvered by species that had been conquering worlds for millennia. We survived by learning to be better at warfare than our enemies. How many wars? Admiral Rexmore asked quietly. 17 major conflicts over the past 3 centuries, Chen replied, against 12 different hostile species. We've encountered civilizations that enslave entire worlds, species that harvest other life forms for resources, and predatory cultures that view conquest as entertainment. Professor Zentara's crystalline form was completely still. And you defeated them all? We survived them all, Chen corrected. Sometimes through victory, sometimes through strategic withdrawal, sometimes through negotiations backed by demonstrated capability. But we survived, and we learned. Learned what? Commander Chen's smile was sharp and completely without mercy. That the universe is much more dangerous than you realize, and that peaceful civilizations survive only because someone is willing to stand between them and the predators. The implications struck everyone simultaneously. Humanity hadn't developed in peaceful isolation. They had been forged by combat against enemies that galactic civilization had never imagined. They had become powerful not through gradual advancement, but through the brutal necessity of survival against impossible odds. Commander, Admiral Rexmore said with growing respect, are these hostile species still a threat? They're contained, Chen replied. For now, but the galaxy is larger than your current knowledge suggests, Admiral. There are things out there in the dark between stars that would terrify civilizations that have forgotten how to fight. And humanity stands against them? Humanity stands ready to defend what we've built and protect those who can't protect themselves, Chen confirmed. That's what we've been doing for 3 centuries, and that's what we'll continue to do. Doctor. Vexan's energy form brightened with sudden understanding. That's why your individual capabilities are so extensive. You're not just explorers, you're sentinels. Every human is prepared to serve as a first line of defense against the unknown, Chen agreed. Because we've learned that in the vast darkness of space, you can't depend on anyone else to save you. As the full scope of humanity's situation became clear, Zixth realized that First Contact had revealed something unprecedented in galactic history. They had encountered a civilization that had achieved advancement not through cooperation and shared knowledge, but through conflict and independent development. A species that had looked into the abyss of cosmic hostility and chosen to become strong enough to stare back. The question was no longer whether humanity could be integrated into galactic civilization. The question was whether galactic civilization was ready to learn that they had never been as safe as they thought, and that their security had always depended on forces they never knew existed. As Commander Chen prepared for the next phase of what was rapidly becoming the most significant diplomatic event in galactic history, Zixtha understood that the universe was about to change in ways that no one could predict. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Medical Station Kepler, those 442b, 3 days later, transforming the peaceful research facility into the center of the most significant diplomatic crisis in 50,000 years. Representatives from every major civilization, military alliance, and trade federation had arrived, along with species that hadn't participated in galactic affairs for millennia. Zixth found herself assigned as official medical liaison for the proceedings, a role that put her at the center of historical events while allowing her to continue observing Commander Chen's interactions with galactic leadership. What she witnessed challenged everything she thought she understood about diplomacy, power, and the nature of civilization itself. The council chamber had been hastily configured to accommodate the diverse physiological needs of dozens of species. Energy beings like Dr. Vexen existed as controlled plasma fields, while crystalline entities like Professor Zentara resonated in harmonic frequency patterns. Gas giant dwellers floated in specialized atmospheric containment fields, and deep ocean species like Zixth moved through fluid-filled environment suits. At the center of it all sat Commander Sarah Chen, looking remarkably composed for someone who had become the focus of interstellar attention. She wore the same practical clothing she had arrived in, carried the same equipment she had always possessed, and maintained the same professional courtesy that had characterized all her interactions. The contrast between her unpretentious appearance and the elaborate formal protocols surrounding her was striking. Chancellor Mordain of the Galactic Council called the session to order, his ancient ethereal voice carrying across dimensional barriers to reach every consciousness present. We convene this emergency session to address the discovery of the species designation human and the implications of their technological and military capabilities for galactic security. He turned his primary focus toward Commander Chen. Representative of humanity, the Council recognizes your presence and requests formal testimony regarding your species' intentions and capabilities.
Chen stood with the fluid grace that Zixith had learned to associate with combat readiness, though her demeanor remained completely non-threatening.
Chancellor Mordain, honored representatives, I'm grateful for this opportunity to address your concerns.
I should clarify, however, that I'm not an official diplomatic representative. I'm a deep space explorer who happened to make first contact during a routine mission. Nevertheless, Chancellor Mordain continued, you are currently the only source of information about your species available to galactic civilization. Your testimony will shape our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmic order. I understand the responsibility, Chancellor. I'll answer your questions as completely as my authority and security clearance allow. The first series of questions came from Admiral Rexmore, focusing on humanity's military capabilities and defensive technologies. Chen's responses were models of diplomatic precision, completely truthful, but carefully limited to information that revealed capability without exposing strategic details. Commander Chen, Admiral Rexmore said after an hour of methodical inquiry, you've described defensive technologies that exceed our most advanced theoretical models. You've mentioned conflicts with hostile species unknown to galactic intelligence. You've indicated that every human explorer carries equipment equivalent to our most sophisticated military hardware. The implications for strategic balance are unprecedented. Admiral, Chen replied respectfully, I understand your concerns about strategic balance. But I should point out that humanity has been operating in this region of space for several months without causing any disruption to galactic affairs. Our presence only became known when I required emergency medical assistance. Because you were conducting reconnaissance, Chancellor Mordain observed. Because I was evaluating the situation, Chen corrected. Humanity has learned to be cautious about first contact scenarios. Our history with unknown species has taught us the value of careful assessment before revealing our presence. The exchange that followed revealed the fundamental challenge facing galactic civilization. Every question designed to assess humanity's threat potential also revealed information about galactic vulnerabilities. Chen's responses demonstrated that humans had already conducted extensive intelligence gathering about galactic technology, military capabilities, and political structures. It was Professor Zentara who asked the question that changed the entire dynamic of the proceedings. Commander Chen, she said, her crystalline voice resonating with scientific curiosity rather than political concern. You mentioned that humanity has encountered hostile species beyond our knowledge. Could you elaborate on the nature of these threats? Chen's expression grew grave as she considered her response. Professor, that information ventures into areas that could cause significant concern among species that have never encountered such threats. We need to understand the scope of cosmic dangers, Chancellor Mordain said firmly. If threats exist beyond our current knowledge, the Council must be informed. Chen looked around the chamber, her sharp eyes assessing the assembled representatives with the calculating gaze of someone who had learned to read alien psychology through necessity. When she finally spoke, her words carried a weight that made the artificial gravity in the chamber seem heavier. Very well. But understand that what I am about to describe represents information that could fundamentally change your understanding of galactic security. She activated a portable display device, Technology that Zixta noticed was far more advanced than anything she had previously revealed. Three-dimensional images appeared in the chamber's center, showing star charts that extended far beyond the boundaries of known space. This is a strategic overview of threats that humanity has encountered during our expansion into deep space, Chen began. The red zones indicate regions controlled by actively hostile civilizations. Yellow zones represent areas where predatory species conduct regular raiding operations. Orange zones are territories claimed by expansionist empires that view other species as resources to be exploited. The assembled representatives stared in horror at the display. Nearly 30% of the mapped space was marked in red, yellow, or orange. More disturbing still, several of these threat zones were located uncomfortably close to the outer boundaries of known galactic civilization. The Devourers, Chen continued, highlighting a massive red zone, are a machine intelligence that converts organic matter into computational substrate. They've been expanding steadily for the past millennium, consuming entire star systems to fuel their growth. Admiral Rexmore's scaled features had darkened to deep blue, a sign of extreme stress among his species. How close are they to our borders? Approximately 200 light-years from your outermost colonies, Chen replied. The current expansion vector suggests they'll reach hegemony space within 50 years if current trends